Hey guys, Pete here with GIS Solutions. Today we're going to learn QGIS by slowly going through some of the basic functions of the program. If you're brand new to GIS or QGIS, you're in the right place. We'll cover 5 modules including installation, basic interface walkthrough, adding your first layer, simple spatial analysis, and creating a print layout. And as an added bonus, I'll go over my top 3 plugins for QGIS that have been super valuable for me. Stay tuned. To download QGIS, simply open up a web browser and navigate to qgis.org. Once you're on the home page, you'll notice that you could download the software either on the top toolbar or using this green button down below. Either one is fine. Before you can proceed, QGIS has an area where you could donate to QGIS. If you could do that, by all means, go ahead and donate. If not, you could go ahead and click onto this button right here, which says skip, and go to download. On the downloads page, it's broken up by platform. The top portion is for Windows, and the bottom portion is for other platforms such as Linux and Mac. I have a Windows operating system, so I will use the Windows. You'll see that there's long-term versions as well as the latest version. Long-term versions means that there's been extended support and that bugs have been fixed for the most part. The most up-to-date version is great to have the latest and greatest features, but there's always a potential for bugs and instability. For this purpose, I'm going to use the long-term version. The installer is now being downloaded. The installer, the file size for it is about 1.23 gigabytes, so definitely be patient with the downloading of this. It might take a couple minutes, depending on the speed of your computer. Okay, so it looks like the installer has finished installing, so I'll go ahead and go to my downloads folder, and here is that installer. So I can simply double click on it, and the installer is preparing. Let's go ahead and click next. This is just the setup wizard. Here's the license agreement, and you could definitely read through this more carefully. When you're done, you click on the box that says that you accept the terms and click next. By default, QGIS is going to be located on your C programs folder. For me, that works perfectly fine. If you want to change that, simply click on the change button and you could change the directory. I'm also going to leave these 2 checkboxes as defaulted. I want to create a desktop shortcut as well as create a shortcut on my start menu. Go and click next. And finally install. Again, QGIS is about 2.92 gigabytes of space, so it might take a few moments to install. Go and click next. And the installation is complete. So go ahead and click on Finish. Now if you go to your Start menu, to your Programs, you will now see QGIS. You could double click to open up the program. So here are the main areas in the QGIS user interface. We have the layer panel, the browser panel, the toolbars, the processing toolbox, the status bar, the locator bar, and finally the map canvas. Now to better understand the QGIS interface, let's go ahead and create just a real basic shapefile, and then we can interact with it with all the different tools. So to do that, let's go navigate up to Layer, Create Layer, New Shapefile Layer. This window will open up where we could designate a location. And it's always best practice to have a file structure for your data in your project. So I'm going to add a new folder. I'm just going to say test polygon. And you notice I used an underscore instead of a space, as well as where I keep my project. And it's a great habit to do that because sometimes errors occur. So I'm going to name this test polygon. And again, we're creating this shapefile just to help understand some of the tools that are in the interface. Plus, this is a great way to show you how to create a shapefile layer. We'll leave the encoding defaulted the way it is. The geometry type, we can either do a point, multiple point, a line, or a polygon. I'm going to select polygon. Now we have the option to add new fields to this data set. This is optional, but we'll add a new field name just to, for this example. I'll call it location. We could change the field data type, either a string, integer, a date. I'm just going to keep it as a string. When I do, the default is 80 characters. You could always bring that down if you want. You don't have to, but you could. When you're done, you could just add the field to the list. By default, QGIS has an ID field whenever you create a new shapefile. You could always delete it if you don't want to. In this case, I will. And I will click OK. And there's my test polygon in my layers panel. Now to edit this polygon, now if you had other layers, you would select the layer you want to edit first. But in this case, I just have the one. I'll navigate up to the toggle editing tool, which looks like a pencil. When I do that, you'll notice that some of these tools become active. The tool I'm looking for is this one right here, the Add Polygon feature. I'll left click onto that. Now I can start drawing in my map canvas. I'll start by left clicking once, and you see I'm in an edit mode where I could start creating my polygon. When I'm done, I will right click once. Now I finished creating my polygon. If you recall, this is the field we added, location. I'll just call it location A and click OK. Now if I'm done and I'm satisfied with this polygon, I could toggle the editing, click Save, and now I'm out of the edit session. Now that my test polygon has been created, we could use a few of these tools. We could zoom in, and likewise we could always zoom back out, or we could just use our mouse and scroll in and out. We could also select the polygon. When we do, we could zoom to the selected feature. This is really helpful, especially if you're zoomed way too far out, maybe your polygon is off the map canvas. When we zoom to layer, it'll come right back on here. If we want to unselect our selection, we could choose this tool here, deselect features from all layers. We could also use the identify tool to identify the feature. And here we can see that this is our location A test polygon. And again, this is our editing environment. And we can turn that off again. And labels. We could label our test polygon. By default, QGIS is going to have a no labels selection here. But let's select single label, and location is our only value in our table, and that's the one we want. You can see that A is selected. And you can see that A is being labeled. Now we can certainly change the font type if we want, the style, and the size. Of course, we could also change the color. And just like the label, we could also change the color of the polygon itself. Best thing to do is select onto the layer, right-click, and go to Properties. And right here in Color, we click the down arrow, and just like the labeling, we could change the color. And also the transparency if we like. So let's add our first layer to our QGIS project. Now there's a good chance that you received a data file like a zip file of a shapefile that you want to add. And so let's go ahead and go to our downloads where I have a sample data set called parcels. As you can see, it is zipped. So I'm going to cut this, right click and cut. I'm going to go over to my project folder, and then I'm going to add a new folder called parcels. And that's my data set that I'm working with right now. I'll double click into my new folder. Oops. And I'm going to right click, I'm going to paste that zipped file. And I will right click and extract it all. I'm doing this in this format because it's really crucial that you have in your project folder, you separate out your data. Perhaps you might have some raster files, perhaps you have some tables. You definitely want to keep everything kind of nice and organized. It would definitely help you in the long run. So again, we'll go into that parcel folder that I just created. You can see that I still have that zip file and it was extracted. And you see that a shapefile contains a lot of different layers. We have the shapefile itself, an SHX file, SBN, a project file, a database file, so forth. And you don't want to add this data directly to your QGIS project, like selecting one at a time. You want to add it through QGIS. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. And I'm going to navigate up here to the layers. Instead of creating a new layer, we're going to add a layer, add a vector layer. Now we're just going to navigate to the source, that parcel folder that we just created. And we want to select on shapefile right here, SHP. If there's ever any doubt, you're always going to look for the type right here, shapefile. And then you click on open, then add, and then close. Okay, and I'm just going to close off that for now. This is our shapefile of parcels. It's just a sample data set. Now at this point, it would be good to have a background just to really put these parcels into some sort of content, where they're at. To do that, let's go over to our browser panel and we'll scroll down this XYZ tiles. That's what we want to navigate to. And we're going to expand that out. And we have a lot of different choices of backgrounds we could add. What I'm going to look for is the Google satellite. I'm just going to left click and hold and bring it right down here. What this is doing, this is asking about projections. It's comparing that to the layer that we have, and I'm just going to agree to what we have right now. Now you can see that my parcels disappeared, and what happened was my satellite layer is on top. I want to bring that down to the bottom. There we go. The QGIS assigned a green color to these parcels. Now I would rather have them transparent. So again, I can select my layer, right click, select on properties. You can always adjust this window. Just kind of grab the corner, left click and hold to whatever your needs are, or just simply move it around. Right now, the simple layer is a simple fill. If we just want to outline, we could just select outline, simple line. From there, we could increase the thickness to whatever thickness you desire. You can also change the color if you like. And you always need to click apply to see the changes. Obviously, I'm not really too satisfied with this reddish color. Maybe I'll select a white. That really pops out a little bit more. And you could always experiment. You could change your lines to have a little more of a dash, so forth. And if you're done, just click apply and OK, and the window will disappear. Okay, so we have our parcels. We changed the symbology from a solid to more of an outline, and we changed the color. Like in the previous demonstration with our test polygon, we could add labeling to it. Of course, it all depends on what kind of data is associated with your shapefile. So to look at that, you could always select on the layer, right-click, navigate to Open Attribute Table. This is all the data that's associated with my shapefile. Some of the stuff will make sense, some of it might not. But for this sample data set, I basically have parcel ID, the size of the polygon. Looks like there's some assessment information. Perhaps some ownership names and valuation. But let's go ahead and just add, let's say, the parcel ID. Let's go and label that parcels_GI. So if this window wasn't up, we simply click on the label option, and we want to make sure that parcels is selected. And again, by default, it says no labels. We'll select single labels, and it happened to select the one we want is the parcels_GI. If not, you would select what you need. Again, you could change the font, the style, the size, and the color. Let's go ahead and do some simple spatial analysis. So right now I want to turn off my labels. I just don't need those right now. So I'm just gonna, what I did, I clicked up here to my labels tool, and I'm gonna take off single labels to no labels. All right, and I'll close out of that. Okay, so we just have some sample parcels on top of an aerial background, and we'll use this as an example. Let's say that this parcel right here, let's say it needs to be split right in half. Let's go ahead and highlight our parcels layer, and let's go ahead and click on to our toggle editing tool. Okay, now let's go up to the top to edit. Now we go to edit geometry. All these new tools open up when we're in the editing environment. So let's go and do a split and split features. As you can see, my cursor has changed to this little bullseye tool. So to begin a split, we want to start from outside of the polygon we want to split. So I'm going to left click out here. You can kind of see right now that there's a little trailing red line that has a bunch of dashes. Yeah, that just kind of shows you we have begun our split. So I wanted to split right here, and there's my split. and I'm going to right click. So I am done with that split. And you see that line just kind of cleanly appeared right there. And just to show you, I could use the select tool here, and right now we have two features. And to show that in another way, I'm going to right click on the layer, open up the attribute table, and here are my two selected features. Now, just a little side note, if you want to show just my selected features here, down below on the bottom left, right now it says show all features. We click the down arrow, show selected features. And here you go. And if you want to deselect our features, that's okay. And we want to show all features one more time. That's just a little side note. So again, we just took one polygon and we split it in half. Now say we want to merge that. We want to merge these two. So again, make sure that our select tool is selected, and we select both of these polygons. You can also double check down here. It says two features selected on layers parcels. That's my layer name. Again, we're still in our editing environment. We go up to Edit, Edit Geometry, Merge Selected Features. Yep, we want to merge those into one. We say OK, and it's merged. Okay, and we want to, now say we want to continue editing, maybe in a different area, and we don't want to edit exit out of our editing environment. We could save the layer, or save our edits as of now, and continue on. Otherwise, if you just click on the button, it would say, you want to save your edits? You would say yes. Okay, let's do another example now. Let's select a random polygon somewhat in the middle, and we'll create a buffer around it, say like a 300-foot buffer. Okay, so we again make sure that our layer is selected. We toggle editing, and I want to use the select tool. Let's just select this one right here. So what I'm going to do now is right click on my layer, go to export, and I want to save selected feature. So it's just going to be the one. I'm going to direct to my project folder, go to my parcels, and I'm going to say subject parcel. Click on save. I'm just going to keep everything as a default, and I want to add that to my map, so I'll leave that checked, and here it is. I'm going to deselect everything, and actually I'm done with my editing, so I'm going to turn that off. And here's my subject parcel. And again, QGIS assigns a random color to this. So if you wanted to change that, one way is to right click and go to Properties, go to your symbol, or symbology rather, or you can just double click and make sure that you're under symbol. I'm fine with it being purple. So let's go and create a buffer. So we don't need to be in an editing environment. I'm just going to close this out so that I successfully saved that layer. So we'll go to Vector, and we'll go to Buffer. Now I want my input layer is my subject parcel. The distance now defaulted to 10 units of meters, but I want to do feet. Let's say 300 feet. If you ever have any questions on what these fields are, a lot of times there's a little helpful hint here. So segments are parameter controls, the number of line segments to use to approximate a quarter circle when creating rounded offsets. I'm just going to leave that as what it is right now. That's fine. End caps, you can have rounded or square. It just depends on the geometries you're using And you could definitely just play around with this. Right now it's going to create a temporary layer, or you could save it to a file. I want to show you how this looks here real quick. So we'll do a temporary. So let's go ahead and run that. And it was pretty quick. I can already see the layer right here. So it's not a perfect circle, right? Because it's based off of that parcel size. So that's why QGIS was asking if I wanted something rounded or not. I'm fine with that. And also notice this little icon right here, because it's a temporary file. So if I were to close out, X out of my project, this will not save at all. So if I really wanted this, we got to save it. So let's go and right click and go to export, save feature as, and I'm going to go back to my parcels folder in my project. And I'm just going to say buffer. And I want to save it. So as you can see, this is my temporary file here, and this is my permanent one. So I'm going to just right click and get rid of this one here. We don't need it anymore. Okay. Speaking of which, you might have noticed I haven't saved my project at all, and that's a very important thing to do, just in case if some weird glitch happens and QGIS crashes or whatever. Definitely save your project. Save it early and often. So I went to project, save as. I'm going to save it right into my project folder. I'm going to say my demo project. Again, I'm using underscores because with geospatial data, a lot of times if you have spaces and titles, sometimes if you do certain analysis, it will kind of squawk at you. You know, a lot of times it's because of that, those spaces. So, okay, so let's take a look at our buffer. I want to double click and put some transparency on that, just so we can see what parcels have been included in that 300-foot buffer. So, yeah, we could go with pink. I'm just going to drop the opacity and just show you guys how easy it is to do this. Maybe you want to thicken the outline here. So simple fill. Let's look at this. They call it stroke. Okay, so maybe that stroke, maybe you wanted it to be red and maybe a little thicker. Again, best thing to do is just play with this. You can see it kind of changed a little bit there. Maybe I want that a 1. There's no right or wrong here. It's just how you want that to look. Maybe that subject parcel, maybe that should be a bright red. You could come down here for some standard colors, or maybe some hatch. That's kind of cool. So there you go. So here is my subject parcel with a 300-foot buffer around it. Okay, let's take this even one more step further. Let's say from our subject parcel here, we created this 300-foot buffer. I want to select all the parcels that are affected by this buffer, even if it means just a little bit on the edge. I want to select all those and create a new layer. So to do that, let's go ahead and go to Vector, Research Tool. And then we're going to do select by location. Okay, so the select feature from parcels, so we want to select from our parcel layer that intersect, and that was defaulted, and that's what we want. So there is any intersections on that compared to the buffer. And we want to modify the current selection by creating a new selection. Yes, that's what we want. We basically just want to select all the parcels that intersect this buffer. So let's go ahead and run that. That was rather quick. And as you can see in yellow, these are all of the parcels that intersect this buffer. Okay, and so here are my selected parcels. And we could select on that parcel layer, because this is the layer that's actually being selected. again, I could right click, export, save feature as. Actually, excuse me, if I save features as, I'm going to copy the whole thing. We need to save selected features as, so just the ones in yellow. Again, I'm just going to direct to my parcel folder here, and I'm just going to say selected buffer parcels. Save that, and yes, I want to add it to my project. Here we go. So maybe I want to turn these off and just turn these on. I could double click and change the background if I wanted to. Something like that. But you guys get the point. So here we go. Here's our buffer. Okay, so let's go and create a layout. To do that, let's go and navigate to the upper left corner to Project. And we click on New Print Layout. And when you do that, this window opens up. It says Create Print Layout. And if you don't type in a name, it will default something for you. But I suggest just doing something that makes sense. I'm going to say Demo Layout. And click OK. Now we have a new user interface. And I'll go and just maximize that. And here is our blank canvas. So to kind of activate the side tool here, let's click on the canvas once. And when you do that, you can see here that we have the page size, orientation. You could change like a custom width and height. So if I want to, instead of like an A4, maybe I wanted, something else, such as that. Maybe instead of landscape, again, I want a portrait. Or you could go over here to custom, and you could change, maybe inches, or if you want something huge, of course, feet, and so forth. So whatever you would like for that. I'm just going to change it back. Okay, so to add my image, what I'm going to do is at the top, click on Add Item, Add Map. And as I bring the cursor up to the upper left, it kind of snaps a little. You can kind of see those guidelines kind of come together. And that's just so that I don't have any, so the map actually covers the whole extent. And the map kind of rendered there real quickly. You could also adjust, maybe you don't need the map to cover the whole canvas. Maybe you want to bring it up from the bottom. Let's go and do that. Let's do that. So we have some space. So we'll put some text, maybe the scale bar, and north arrow, and legend. Okay, so down here, let's go ahead and add some text. And right here, add a label. So I'm just going to kind of just draw out a little box here. And by default, it says Lorem Ipsum. And right here, we could just kind of change that. We'll say, let's see, how about parcel buffer, buffer map, 300 feet. Okay, and here we go. Obviously, it needs a little extra help here. So as I scroll down, I can see I could change maybe the alignments here. Maybe I want to center that. But before I do that, let's go back up here to font. And maybe I don't like that font. Maybe I like something, let's go something a little thicker, something like that. I could increase the size a bit. I could change the color if I wanted to, but I'm just going to stick with black. Looks like we could change the opacity if we want. And I could also just kind of move this around just a little bit more. Just kind of customize it to my own liking. Okay, and say I want to maybe bring the leading a little closer here. What we could do is go to some of these other options here. And there's letter spacing, word spacing, some stretch. And if I go down to line height, I'm just kind of bringing that down, so it just kind of brings that a little together. Okay, and something like that would be fine. And let's go ahead and add, a little legend right over here. Okay. Bring that up a little bit. And here I could add a title. It's not necessary, but if I wanted to say legend, I could. But in this case, I'm just going to leave that blank. Of course, it's going to apply to our map here. We could kind of switch the symbology around if you wanted to, keep it on the left or on the right. And we could always rearrange these if we would like. And since our parcels are actually white, it kind of blends right into the background here. So what we could do is maybe just temporarily, we could click out of the legend, right click, just right in this area here, go to page properties, go to layout, and if we scroll down, and under item properties here, background, let's hit the drop down, and we could just bring it like a shade of, that's a little dark there. Let's see, let's go ahead and do something like, that's kind of a neat little blue color there. And what we'll do, go back to our legend, right click, go back to item properties, and we go to background, and the color, let's go ahead and give some transparent, just bring the transparency all the way back so you can kind of see everything right here. Now if you need multiple columns, you can always use this and break out your legend a little bit more if you wanted to. So again, we have this Google satellite layer here that we just don't necessarily need in the legend. So to remove that, let's go ahead and uncheck this auto update. And we can select the Google satellite. Let me just scroll down here. Select that, and I could just remove that. And even I can remove parcels because that's a little redundant. If this is a little, you could always, if this is a little too much to kind of go up and down, you could always adjust these little panels here. I'm just grabbing and moving up. Yeah, so I could select on parcel layer and just remove that. So we have the buffer, which of course is that, the subject parcel, and then the selected buffered parcels. And if you want to just rename the layers, just the legend, it's not going to affect the map. Go into double click, and the item properties, I could just change this to selected buffer, parcels. Something like that. And I could go back, double click on subject parcel, just make it a little cleaner, and I can even be a little more specific, like 300-foot buffer, and go back. So that looks a little cleaner. And as you can see, as I'm holding with my left mouse, I could just kind of align it just a little bit better when you see that little blue dashed line up here. So something like that. And we could also add a scale bar if we like. Maybe up in here. And we could right click and go to item properties, which I guess we're there already. Scale bar, I could change that to different units of measurement. Looks like split to like 500 feet. And I could increase the unit multiplier. If I scroll down, I could change the appearance, maybe because it might be a little dark blended in here with the aerial imagery. I could change the color to maybe just a little more of a gray color. Let's see here, how about something like that? That could work. Now the labeling's a little bit dark, and we could change that as well. And if I just scroll down a little bit, and we scroll down to font, click onto that, and we could go over here, and we could change the font if we want. Maybe I want that to be bold or not. Regular probably looks okay. The size looks pretty good. It's more the color I want to change. You could just kind of, maybe a little lighter would be good. At least the scale bar looks a little more visible now against the aerial imagery. And if you wanted to, you could always add a north arrow. And you can just kind of drag and click that, and you could put wherever. Sometimes next to the scale bar is always nice. You can always change it. By default, it's gone to this SVG images. If you have a image you actually want to import, you would add it through this way. Going back to SVG images, I want to go to my arrows. I'm going to move this out just a tad. And these are just some of my default arrows I have available to me. Yeah, we could use something like this. It looks a little Star Trek-y. Maybe I want to put it on the other side here. This might look a little nicer. And if you ever have two items that you're moving around, you can always select them both by pushing down on the Shift key and then selecting both. As you see, they kind of move together. You could also right-click and then group them so you don't have to hold anything down. They're always kind of together, even when you expand them out. So as with the map, let's go ahead and save. Always good to save. And say if you closed out the layout, to find that, what you would do, say you closed out your whole project, you brought it open the next day, you navigate to the upper left-hand corner, go to Project, and then open up Layout Manager. Now, QGIS will also keep a little running tab of a couple of your latest layouts, and you can just click it that way. But if you open the Layout Manager, you'll have all your different layouts. You could duplicate one and then maybe change the map or do whatever you need. You can always rename it here. Of course, you can always remove it. You can even create a brand new one within this manager. But you could double click or just say open, and here is your layout. Now you can always export this out as an image by using this tool here, as an SVG or a PDF. Or if you just want to print that directly to your printer. Okay, and just say we want to export this to an image. I click onto that. I'm here in my project folder, and again, it'd be great to have another folder, just keep everything separated. Maybe just say like images. And I'm going to double click to open that out, and I'm fine with it saying demo layout. I'll click OK. By default it says 300 dpi, which is good. And if you need any additional changes to your page width or height, you would do it there, or any cropping. And let's go and open it after exporting. This shouldn't take too long. And here's the final product, all ready to be printed out or emailed away to somebody else. As an added bonus, I want to go over the 3 plugins that I find most useful for my daily geospatial work. So plugins are pretty much what you think of. They're just additions to the user interface. These are all created by different developers, so credit goes out to all these wonderful folks who actually put these together and make them available freely for us to use. So to access plugins, at the top here, we click on plugins and then manage and install plugins. On the left hand side here, you can see that there's all, installed, not installed, invalid, and so forth. So it's kind of important to really distinguish between these two here, because I believe it's always going to default to installed. So if you're searching for a particular plugin, if you're looking for something that's not installed, you're just not going to find it. You have to come up here to all. Now there are some that just come with the software, so these are automatically here. So anyway, so the first one is called QGIS, QGIS, and here it is. If I single click, it just gives me a little brief description about it, the number of downloads, the ratings, and of course the author. A lot of credit goes out to these folks who put these together. So once you select the plugin you want, down on the bottom right here, click Install Plugin. Most of these are pretty quick to install. So that one's installed. So if I go back here to my installed, and it's also looking for that keyword, so I want to clear that out. So now I have all my installed, including the QGIS. If I don't want that to be visible, you can see right here, that's where my plugin is. Each plugin is going to be located in different places. This particular one's right up here. So if I uncheck it, it's no longer visible. If I ever want to uninstall it, I just go to my installed, select onto that plugin, click uninstall. So in my blank project here, I go to my QGIS. A lot of combinations here, different types of buffers I could create. I could geocode, which is really important. I could take a CSV file which contains site addresses, and I could just geocode them or make points of those addresses. Now I do have a great video on that in my channel, so definitely look that up. You could do some different imports and exports, modifications to projections, and so forth. I just find this a very, very useful plugin. The second plugin I find very useful, and I'll go to all. It's called HCM GIS. And I'll go and install that. Again, it shouldn't take too long. Credit goes out to the author here. Go back over to my installed. I clear out that so I can see that it's here. HCM GIS. In this case, it's right next to my QGIS. This one's great because it has so many base maps. Now we do have some base maps already in our browser here under our XYZ tiles. This one has just a little bit more to choose from. You could download some open data. I haven't checked all these sources, but I mean, it's just a great way to obtain data. You could do some batch conversions and do some calculations here on fields. So this is a very good one. I use this a lot for mostly for the base maps. And finally, the third one I find most useful in my day-to-day work is the Quick OSM. And for those who don't know, OSM is OpenStreetMap. It's also open source, so all the street center lines, the buildings, the polygons, all the different boundaries, they're all available to download directly through this plugin onto your QGIS project. So let me go and install that. I have a really detailed video on that in my playlist, so definitely check that out. But real quick, I could show you guys the basics of that. I'm just going to download, or excuse me, add a base map. And say we want to go to somewhere down here, Miami, Florida. And this is the downtown. There's all these big buildings and streets and so forth. So say we want to pull all the data within this map canvas. Now, the larger the extent, the more data, the more space, the more time it'll take. So you're best to kind of zoom in exactly to the area you need. And for the Quick OSM, it actually is just a little tool opposed to these two that were up here on the menu bar. So like I said, each one is different. So let's go and click onto that QGIS, Quick OSM plugin. And get some presets here. You could download some data, a quick query. This is what we're going to do. Let's say we just want apartment buildings. So if we just start typing apartment buildings, okay, so it's kind of figuring out what I need. And down here it says in. Again, refer to that video I did. Just look at my playlist for QGIS, and I'll go over a lot more detail about this. But let's go ahead and just do the canvas extent. And let's go ahead, it's a little bit too big. Oh, here we go. And let's go ahead and run the query. It shouldn't take too long. And just in this extent, what OpenStreetMap identifies as apartment buildings, it just pulled those buildings here for me. So I have that data. Again, it's a very useful tool. I could add, pull just the streets and the waterways and so forth. And again, this is the third tool I use mostly in my day-to-day work. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments down below. If you liked the video, I do appreciate if you like and subscribe to it. I put out videos quite regularly, and I do appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.